Welcome into Tribe Talk, and this week's Tribe Talk we will be covering the Eddyville-Blakesburg-Fremont recap as well as the JV team taking on Martensdale St. Mary's. And as always, joining me here on Tribe Talk is the head football coach of the Clarke Indians, Duane Matthess. Coach, thank you for taking some time here. Obviously, we're a little bit past the Eddyville-Blakesburg-Fremont game, just a little bit, as we had some scheduling differences that couldn't meet up, but now we're here and we can talk a little bit about the ball game that happened about a week ago.
Yeah, thanks for doing this again, Damon. Always appreciate it, and I know our fans enjoy listening to Tribe Talk, but I'm glad we finally could get together and get this taken care of.
Yeah, and now we can look forward to look back, I guess, at that Eddyville-Blakesburg-Fremont game. Another tough game offensively early for you guys. They did come out leading 31-0 at the break. Then you guys jump back on the board late in the ball game. Passing touchdown from John Bear to Amani Fry in that ball game, and talk about your guys' play overall.
Well, offensively, they only beat us by 2 yards. I mean, it was 205 total yards to 203. So we were right there with them offensively. We were able to, move the ball a little bit better in the second half, even at sometimes in the first half. I think that we just needed to sustain a few more drives to get things going, we changed some things up in that game that allowed us to move the ball a little bit better as well. So I think maybe we caught EBF off a little off guard with that, I think what really hurt us that game in EBF was short fields that we gave EBF. We had I think the longest they drove the field was in the first half was maybe from 30 or 40 yards. I mean, so that doesn't really help you when you give them such short fields, and but again, special teams kind of plagued us, and they've really kind of hurt us. Not that our offense hasn't hurt us or anything like that. I'm not trying to put it on special teams, but the last 4 games, I think we had a punt blocked every game. I mean, and that's the most punts I've ever had blocked in my coaching career. I mean, and as much time as we spent on punting, I think we should be able to have that shored up. So it's disappointing to see that, but it gives us something to kind of work on in the offseason as we approach that, and as the season comes to an end. But I think there are a lot of positives, and it was nice to see the kids really start to click offensively there towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and you talked about it. Your guys' offense started coming together there towards the end of the game, and you look at it as far as the last few games of the regular season. Your offense did start finding a little bit of momentum, and you guys were able to sustain some drives late in ball games. What is it going to take to sustain drives throughout the game and put you guys in good position to put up points on the board throughout the ball games?
Well, I think, to sustain drives earlier in the ball game, what we really need is, I hate to feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but we got to get stronger and we got to get in the weight room, and so, and that's, I believe that's where we really kind of fell short, is we just were overpowered. I mean, and again, but we had guys that, had easily, the opponents that they were lined up against had 100 pounds or more on them, and so they were easy to kind of get pushed around a little bit. But I think that the biggest thing is, besides that, is just to the kids just being the repetition that we finally were having with our plays, and we really didn't change much. I mean, we just added a few wrinkles, but I think the kids just got finally some confidence, and I think that's a big part of it too. Is the kids got shell-shocked a lot, I mean, this season with lining up against, bigger and stronger guys. I mean, so they kind of took a pounding. And once they finally, played some of these teams where we matched up a little bit better, I think that the success that they had on some of those plays and drives really build their confidence up and allowed them to, just play with a little bit more confidence.
And I know we'll talk in a future Tribe Talk about your guys' off-season plans, but kind of give us a little hint at what you guys plan to do this off-season to help build that and build you guys up so you do match up a little bit better against teams next season.
Well, we're, after Thanksgiving here, we're going to hit the weight room. I mean, with, the intensity that is required to, build caliber athletes that are going to be able to compete on Fridays. But I think, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to have 1 day a week, yet to be determined what day it will be, but where we come together and, go over stuff offensively and defensively. So it's, and it's not, we're not trying to, overload the kids, but it's just like, 1 day a week they come together and, an hour or so in the gym and, working over offensive stuff, and I think that'll, you'll see huge dividends in that, in the sense where kids will, kind of be ahead of the curve when it comes to, summertime and what we start doing during the summer. So.
And you guys don't have to start from scratch at the beginning of the season, and you guys can continue that throughout this off season as well, which will be beneficial. And now that you've got the first year under your belt, you know the team, you know what you've got coming back, and you kind of seen what is going to be coming up in the future as well. Kind of helps you prepare a little bit better for next season as well.
Yeah, I was talking to Coach Reese, and I actually kind of said, the way I'm kind of approaching this is, essentially this is year one right now. I mean, starting right now.
Yep.
I mean, because when I got hired, it was, essentially right before June. Really hard to put your stamp on a program with, less than 3 months to go. And so now I know all the kids, I know all their names. I see them in school every day. I'm able to have a little bit better communication with them than when, before, when I wasn't actually in town. So this is essentially, the way I look at it is we begin now. Mm-hmm. And not saying that this last season, was a wash or anything like that, but it's really hard to institute a lot of those things, like when you're talking about the weight room and stuff like that. When you just really start, 2 months.
Yep. Now we can look back a little bit at some of the key performances from that Eddyville game. Talk to us a little bit about someone or some players, I guess, that kind of stood out to you from Eddyville, and someone that kind of made an impact for you guys in that ball game.
Well, I'm just going to go over some of the stats that we had as a team here. I mean, you look at number of plays we ran. We actually ran 53 plays compared to 43 against them. So we actually had 10 more plays that they ran. Passing yards, we threw for 50. They threw for 24. So we beat them there. Rushing yards, we had 153 compared to their 181. That we almost had the exact same rushing attempts, 39 to 37. They actually averaged 4.9 yards a carry. We averaged 3.9. So we were real close in a lot of things. Penalties, we had 5, they had 5. Now ours were for 25 yards, they were for 45 yards. So there wasn't, a lopsidedness in that at all. We did have 1 turnover. We had the 1 interception. I mean, so I guess when you look at that, first downs, we had 13, they had 12. So stat-wise, it was a real competitive game in the sense. I think what you see the difference is that short field that I was talking about, as well as that 1 turnover that we had with that interception. But John Bear stepped in at quarterback. We had a couple injuries. Big shocker there. Again, we're keeping Clarke County in business here.
Yeah.
Here in Osceola, but John was 4 for 9 stepping in at quarterback. He threw for 42 yards, had 1 touchdown, obviously there, which is nice to see. But the bigger impact is he had 92 yards rushing on 25 attempts. So, and it was nice to see Byron Rivera, have almost. He was right behind John with 70 yards rushing. For on 11 attempts. Riley Domina again, big shocker. He's towards the front there when defensively for us. It seems like he's always been right there towards the top. He had 7.5 tackles, had a half tackle for loss. Jake Smith, talk about a kid that's really kind of continued to get better and better as the season went on. He's only a freshman. He had 5.5 tackles. He had 2 tackles for loss. And again, Amani Fry, he had 2 tackles for loss. So tackles for loss, that game were pretty good. We had, I think, 7 tackles for loss total. So that's nice to see when you can. So there's great things flashes that we've seen. We just gotta, put those pieces together to get more consistency out of, the guys that we have.
Absolutely, and as you guys use that as your baseline pretty much for this off season, you can go off and now know what's going to be and what you want to be expected for next season.
Right. And that's one of the big things that I talked about with our guys is, the message that I shared is, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting different results. And I told them that as a way to say, like, hey, if you don't want a season like we've endured this year, the way that you make sure that we don't is by getting in the weight room and taking care of business there. Because if you do exactly the same thing that we did this off season and you expect different results, you technically are insane because you're
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Absolutely. Segment number 1 of Tribe Talk is brought to you today by Joe's Hack and Quack Barbershop. Segment number 2 of Tribe Talk. We're going to talk a little bit about the JV team taking on Martensdale St. Mary's. And, Coach, you guys took on Martensdale, defeated them pretty handedly. You guys looked really good offensively in that ball game, defensively as well, as only 1 defensive touchdown gave up in that ball game. And talk to us about Martensdale.
Well, we in an opportunity where we got a lot of guys some playing time, we dressed 22 guys, 9 through 12, and played them. And I'm just going to be honest, Damon, this whole year we played a JV team against varsity opponents. So with the number of seniors and upperclassmen that we have on the team compared to the number of freshmen and sophomores that we have contributing on our team, so it was nice to see what we could do against some, similar opponents. And so Coach Zizis over at Martensdale St. Mary's was nice enough to say, hey, I know you guys are going to play some juniors and a couple seniors, but, come on over to our place. And they had a JV game that was canceled, so we were able to get one in. And, offensively, we put up the most points that we have all season long with 46 points, and that was mostly through the running the ball. Defensively, we only gave up 148 yards of offense, 65 passing compared to 83 rushing yards. So that was really nice to see us be able to contain an offense. Offensively, we were 9 of 16 passing the ball. We had 2 touchdowns thrown through the air, so that was a good thing. We did have 2 interceptions, though. We had 104 yards passing. Rushing yards, it's really where we kind of, made the made the day for us with 289 yards rushing. Some individual performers out of that game. Obviously Cole Reese was 6 of 9 for 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have 1 pick. Zethan May, got some playing time. He was 3 for 7 for 31 yards, did some nice things. John Bear ran the ball 9 times for 133 yards. Byron Rivera, he had 10 attempts for 66 yards. And here was a real pleasant surprise. Fonnie Fry, he had 6 rushes for 64 yards. He had averaged 10.7 yards per carry. Also had a touchdown. So that was, really, really nice to see that offensively, to get off on a good start there. It was really great to see Riley Domina have a good game catching the ball. He had 6 receptions for 73 yards. He had our 2 touchdowns through the air. Dalton Stubbe and Lane Cruikshank really led the way for our defense. They both had 2.5 tackles for loss. Dalton had 6 tackles. Lane had 4.5 tackles. So across the defensive line, we had 4 freshmen, starting with Lane Cruikshank, Dalton Stubbe, Jake Smith, and Chris Carson. That was those guys really got after it and got some pressure on Martensdale's quarterback. So that kind of set the tone for us. We had during the game, I kind of said some of the things that we've endured this year with special teams mistakes, and we had they bobbled a punt. We ended up with a short field there and quick touchdown. We had a punt of one of the weirdest plays I've been a part of in all my coaching years. It was a real low punt that literally kind of stuck in the side of the lineman's arm, who was behind the line of scrimmage, and Jake Smith makes a heads-up play and just literally rips the ball out of the lineman's hands and runs it in for a touchdown. It's a fumble, first of all.
Right.
The ball never actually ever hit the ground, and it never crossed the line of scrimmage, so therefore it's not a dead ball once it's been downed or anything like that. It's still live, and so it was a great play on his part, and so we had a special teams touchdown. We had Dang Bolus had an interception. We had some fumble recoveries, some turnovers on downs on them offensively to give us some short fields, and then offensively, I really feel like we could pretty much done anything that we wanted to at that point.
And you guys obviously did that, putting up 40-some points in the ball game. That's really, really nice to see for you guys to play competition. Like you said, you guys are pretty much as a JV squad this season that you put up against varsity, so it was nice to be able to play someone like a Martensdale right now, and you guys go out and put it to them. You put it to it, and you guys go out, and that's the way I'm sure you envisioned your offense looking coming into this season.
Yeah, it's certainly you have some goals that you set for yourself, and no way did I come close to meeting those. What was the expectation for our team, this year. But it was nice to see them in this year with this type of game, and having that success. Hopefully this, gets them with a positive taste in their mouth, with football, and gets them fired up and motivated to come back and put in the work that requires to be successful.
And being a successful team, like you said, it's gonna take some work, and you guys get that confidence heading into the off season with this victory. Talk about your defensive play. I know you kind of highlighted some of the players that stood out to you there, and some of the big defensive plays in that one. But you guys held them to one offensive touchdown. Martensdale scored 1 offensive touchdown in the football game. Your defense stood up and played stout.
Yeah, they really did. Again, I talk about it, and the fact that sure there were some of those upper, Riley Domina, John Bear, Byron Rivera, Ryan Bubbles all played, and they're upperclassmen. Monty Fry as well is in that group. But, you look at like our defensive line. It was freshmen across the board. And our linebackers, there was a sophomore playing there with Alejandro Byford. Our free safety is a sophomore, Fonnie Fry. Tanner Fry got in there playing some defensive back. Really, he kind of got taken to him on one play, but he came back and he just continued to fight. That's the kind of thing that you love to see. Just because Tanner's until he hits that growth spurt, it's gonna he's vertically challenged at this point, but he still fights, and that's what I love about all those Fry kids that are on the team. They got a lot of fight in them, and that's a credit to Joel and Heather, who've done an outstanding job. I mean, they're just outstanding people. But I could say that about all of our kids. I feel like on our team overall we have, I think, some outstanding players across the board, and great citizens, great people who care about their community and care about others. One of the nice things that every officiating crew that we've came across this year after the game, they've all said just glowing things about our kids, in the sense of the sportsmanship that they've displayed, helping players up, and patting guys on the back, that aren't even on their team. That takes a special person, to take some of the adversity that they've faced and still show that type of sportsmanship. But I think, like I mentioned, defensively, Jake Smith, Tanner Fry played really well for us. I mentioned Dang Bullis had the interception for us, but I really believe next year and the year after, and even the year after that, our future's bright here at Clarke, especially with some of these guys that got a lot of playing time this year. You look at the true freshmen that have played this year with Jake Smith, Chris Carson, Dalton Stubbe. Those three have been like the big ones that have came in and taken pretty much every snap since the beginning of the year. And now some of them, it hasn't been pretty and they've gotten pushed around. But you take a look at like Jake and Dalton, for instance. There's not too many times that you can potentially say that you have a 4-year starter on your offensive line by the time they become seniors. And boy, I tell you what, if I was them, by the time they're seniors, you have a lot of pent-up aggression. Then it's time to be the hammer instead of the nail type of mentality. Because those guys, I think, by the time, if they do what I feel like they will do in the off season and through other sports, those two are going to be tanks.
That'll be good for you guys moving forward, and then everybody else getting in there and buying into it as well. Segment number 2 of Tribe Talk brought to you by Osceola Foods. Segment number 3 of Tribe Talk here, and talking with the head football coach of the Clarke Indians, Duane Matthess. Coach, unfortunately for you guys, you decided to sit out the game against PCM to round out the regular season on the varsity level. A lot of things went into this decision, I'm sure, and it was probably a tough one for you guys to amount to. But talk to us about the decision and what you guys look forward or look at as a whole from this game and this decision.
Well, it certainly wasn't an easy decision. We, as our season came to a close, we essentially had 20 players, 9th through 12th, we had around, I think, 14 guys that were hurt, injuries, which is, I know I try to make light of it, talking about keeping Clarke County in hospital and business and should invest in them. But this probably has been one of the most challenging seasons I've been a part of, in the sense of injuries. And I know that's heightened by, the fact that we have some issues with depth, on our team. If we had 50 guys on our team or 60 guys, 70 guys, when 13 go down, that's not that big of a deal. However, when you start out the season mid-30s, it becomes a lot bigger issue. Talking with our administration and as well as Mr. Tharp from the Iowa High School Athletic Association, we all came to the conclusion that, with PCM, they're obviously our district champs. They went 9-0. That I didn't feel comfortable as the head coach of our program putting out any more freshmen just to, kind of throwing them to the wolves against PCM. I think that ultimately when we talk about the safety of our players, that's something that I take, very serious. And that, to me, the risk reward to do that wasn't worth it. Right. And I certainly didn't want to ruin those guys, any more of those freshmen. We have several freshmen playing at the varsity level this year, and it wasn't because that's what we wanted. If we wanted to have a team, that's what we had to do. And so, it was I commend those freshmen that played those games at the varsity level. And in a perfect world, would it be great if they were down playing with their classmates at the freshman level? Absolutely. But hopefully they come out better for it, in the sense of knowing a year ahead of all those classmates and knowing what varsity competition was like, when knowing what varsity expectations are like. And, I know this isn't the first time for some of those players to be called upon for varsity action. I know they had done so in baseball. I expect that that'll probably be the case for wrestling and basketball for some of them. And, just because that's just the type of athletes that they are. I know we reached out to PCM and had a conversation with them, and, talking with Coach Bonnet at the district meeting. He understood, we apologized for it. In the perfect world, I never thought, when I took this job that I'd be having to make a decision like this. But had to, and looking back on it, would I rather ended our season with our JV game, or throwing those kids to the wolves against PCM? And 1,000%, I think we made the right call here at Clarke.
And rightfully so. You talked about it, and the safety of your players is always number one. And when you have multiple key guys throughout this season go down with injuries throughout the year, whether it be your best offensive lineman coming into the year, your top running back coming into the year, whatever it may be, you look back at it and say, we can't lose another injury like this, because they do have more years yet to come. I mean, for some of them, yes, this was their final hurrah in football, but they also have else to look forward past high school ball, and for you guys to make that decision, that tough decision, I know a lot of people commend you for it.
Well, and I think the thing that I look at too is, like you mentioned, there are several of our players that had season-ending injuries that are missing other sports. I look at a Connor Deutsch, a Nick McVeigh. He's probably going to miss some of his track season. He doesn't do a winter sport, but Connor plays basketball as well as golf. He's probably going to be affected by them, and affected that he's going to miss some of those games. He's going to miss his whole basketball season, probably some of golf season. But I know that both of those kids too are also working really hard in their rehab and to get better. And that's just the type of student athletes that they are. I would have felt absolute miserable if we would have throw some of those more of those freshmen out against PCM, and if they sustained an injury that was going to affect them into their next sport. like I said, that risk reward just wasn't worth it. And if we were in a different situation, it never was a situation where, you're looking at PCM, obviously 9-0 district champions, gonna first round playoffs take on Williamsburg. It never was a thing of, well, gee, they could probably put up 100 points on us. That's a reality, but that's not why the decision was made to not play them. It wasn't because just coach doesn't want to get scored on. That wasn't the deal. It was always about player safety, and if someone wants to, come out or come down on me for canceling forfeiting the game, and because of that, that's I'll take that. That's fine. But I know, and our administration knows, our school board knows, and I think a lot of our community members know that this was the right decision.
Well, it takes broad shoulders to admit or to take that and to have that put on you guys. But I know just talking through a lot of community members that they agree that you guys made the right decision based on player safety. So that will do it for this Tribe Talk. We will be back in a couple of weeks when the all-district announcements are made. And Coach, final thoughts before then?
Yeah, it's I'll save, I guess, a lot of my final thoughts for our season recap edition of Tribe Talk. But again, I guess, and you'll hear me repeat this, people in the community who tune into Tribe Talk, don't fear. I mean, and the future's bright, and I mean that with all sincerity. Rome wasn't built in a day. I hate to use cliches, but it's true. Mm-hmm. And Clarke football isn't going to get built in 5 months. Right. And essentially, what you can say that how long we've been here putting in work, and we will get better, mm-hmm. and we will get there. It's a process, and people got to trust in our coaching staff and well as our players that they will get there. And like I've told everyone, we will get there together. Hand in hand. That's what it's going to take, is to get there together. And but it'll be exciting the next time we get together, and hopefully we'll have some good news on our all-district team. I know that there's several players that I think deserve some recognition for what they've put forth for our team, and hopefully that's the case. And I look forward to making those announcements.
Tribe Talk this week and every week is brought to you by Osceola Dental Care, Osceola Foods, and Joe's Hack and Quack Barbershop. We'll be back with a season recap in a couple of weeks. That's Tribe Talk.